I'm just going to go to Facebook Live.
I feel powerless not having the controls. Since you're doing the controlling today, and it's a weird feeling. It's like being in the passenger seat instead of the driver's seat of the car.
Okay, we'll go live.
Okay, this is Jane Johnson and Bill Brady.
One second.
27th, 2023.
It's not gone live yet.
This is Jane Johnson and Bill Brady.
Hang on. I'll start. I'll do it when it's started. Hi, this is Jane Johnson and Bill Brady, doing a Facebook Live on estates and what are they and why do they matter. Can you hear okay, Bill?
Yes, I can. You're sounding good.
Good.
The sound is good. So we are going to welcome all of heaven, and especially those that are a part of the mandate today here to join us. And we saw that we open ourselves as gates in the realm of the beginning, and that we are functioning in the city of blank, help me.
Oh, Salem.
City of Salem, thank you. There was a moment blank there. City of Salem and headship over the realm of the beginning. So the topic is the estates of man, why that's important, what they are, why that's important. Jane, you want to?
Yeah, what I sense today is that we're told to proclaim or sow a seed around these estates. There's not full revelation on it yet, and that doesn't matter because there has to be a hunger from the universal ecclesia or houses to get more revelation to come out. And there's generally a lack of understanding at all about what an estate is. And even some almost rejection of the simple story of just Adam leaving and being in the fall. And that's all there is to it. So what I sense is that we just really lay down our current doctrine and we open our hearts to any revelation, any new story that God wishes to reveal to us about the creation, about the different estates, why they matter, and to proclaim your hunger for why they matter. And what I've been shown is that because we talk a lot about restoring or going back to the original blueprint, we have to know what the original blueprint was and all the different stages. And it gets a little bit more complicated than just going back to the original blueprint. That actually is not a good phrase. So take your time to really be open to that. Try not to trigger on that. Because it's a bit of both, really. Bill did we have a page on this which will be on our Patreons, and he did an amazing study on the origins of the word estate. Do you want to share that, Bill?
Yeah, the phrase "leave their first estate" is found in Jude, and it refers to the category of angels or beings that are called the sons of God. Now, God created the sons of God in creation before he created, did the work that he did in days 1 through 6 in Genesis 1. So the sons of God were actually present at the time and participated in our creation. But some of them stayed in their initial form that they were created in, and others of them left that form and stepped down. So the word estate is, in Greek, it's the word arche, which is the word that is translated beginning. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That word beginning in Hebrew or in Greek is the word arche and means beginning. So the first status that a created being is created in is their first estate. If they step down from that, then they have left their original blueprint and they're in some form that's less than what they originally were in. Or if they, on the other hand, step up from it into another form, then they've stepped up into another estate. We call stepping down, we call that falling in the case of the sons of God or Adam, falling, right? And in the case of stepping up, it's generally an ascension, is what it is. So the sons of God, this group of created beings, some of them left their first estate and fell to a lower estate, and actually they cohabited with human women and produced mixed offspring and taught mankind a lot of kinds of evil that mankind didn't know until they were taught it by them. On the flip side, the sons of God taught Enoch when he ascended. They taught Enoch righteous things that he passed along to mankind, which is what the sons of God were actually initially destined to do. So my point is, anyway, the status and identity and function that you're initially created in is your first estate. You step down from that, you fall. If you ascend up into another estate, then like Yeshua did when he was, after his death, burial, and resurrection, he entered a second estate from where he was. That's a general idea of what estates mean. Now, there's one more point to make, is that there can be steps up or steps down that aren't enough of a step to actually be a change of a state. They're just like part of the journey towards changing the state, either up or down. But they're not actually a full change of a state. So
Yes,
that's
we've
an
also
initial-
been wrestling with, is a state's change of density, because we're all light and it's different stages of that light flowing through us. And we do sense a correlation. We're not exactly clear on what relates to what density, but that's another way of thinking of estates. Or the other way I see it is the ability to operate. So, to what extent can we transfigure, translocate, move through portals? To what extent is our body light? All these things represent, to what extent do we understand sin or evil or even the big picture? And to what extent are we corruptible or incorruptible?
Yep. I see that as being the key way to define the estates is by that word, corruptible, incorruptible. Now, I had a really nice page that I made a chart, but I can't share it because we're using their Zoom and not mine. So I'll have to do this verbally, but let's do it this way. When Adam was first created, he was not yet immortal, which is the next estate up, and he was not yet mortal. He hadn't fallen, which is the next estate down from him. He was right here. And he was also not corrupted, which is the next estate down, and he was not yet incorruptible, unable to be corrupted, which is the next estate up. So right here, Adam was corruptible. He hasn't been corrupted, and he hasn't become incorruptible. He's able to go either way, depending on whether he falls or ascends, right? And he's also able to die in the sense like he could get in an accident, but he's not going to die otherwise. he's not mortal in the sense that he's definitely going to die at some point, which is what happened after he fell. And the way all of us have been born into being mortal, with the exception of Yeshua, and I do believe that someday mankind will be born without being mortal. So he wasn't mortal because he hadn't fallen yet, and he wasn't immortal yet because he hadn't yet ascended. So up here, you can't die and you can't be corrupted. You're exempt, right? Here you can go either way. And down here, you have fallen and you are both corrupted and mortal. For me, that's the way to define the estates. So this one here, where Adam was first created, that's his first estate. That's how he was made. Down here is his fallen estate. That's what he fell to, and that's what all of us have experienced for all of our lifetimes, that we can be restored back to the first estate. And then up here, the second estate is the one that Yeshua went to after his death, burial, resurrection, and ascension, and he was seated up here. He was seated in the second estate. And he's the forerunner, and we will follow him, but we have to go from fallen estate to first estate to second estate. That's how I see these estates. Now, there's one more aspect to it. When Adam was first made, he was made the Son of God. When Yeshua was first conceived, he wasn't yet the Son of God, which is something we have to get used to. As we talk about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we think about the Father and the Son even before Yeshua was conceived, but Yeshua wasn't the Son just because he was conceived. He actually became the Son when God the Father said, "You are my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased." At that point, God the Father called him Son, placed the name Son on him, and Yeshua was made the Son of God at that point. So Adam was the Son of God when he was first made, and Yeshua, after his baptism, is the Son of God again. He's in exactly the same place that Adam was. They're both the Son of God at that point, and they are both corruptible. They can be corrupted, and they're both able to die, but they haven't fallen and they haven't ascended. They're right here. So Yeshua is just like Adam. He's does his beginning after his baptism. He's now fully in the first estate, because he's the Son of God, just like Adam was the Son of God. Now, when we become sons of God, we're over here. We're not the Son of God, because the Son of God is Adam and Yeshua. We are individually a Son of God, and a group of us, plural, are the sons of God. Okay, so fallen estate, first estate, second estate.
Yes, very, very helpful. I think what's confusing is we know that Adam in the Garden East of Eden was faced with two trees and had to deal with Lucifer's fall. And so he wasn't originally in full perfection. And he was immature, and he was able to be corrupted. Yes. So that confuses us, that we're not going back to that place, but equally what Adam has a bearing there. But we're seeing that when we're moving to New Jerusalem, we're now dealing with the fact that evil has to some extent been dealt with.
Yeah, I think, Jane, it's very, very helpful to look at two things. One is the estate of the individual, and the other is the environment that's around them, which can make things harder or easier. In other words, the atmosphere around, the environment around Adam was almost like designed to cause him to fall. I mean, the one that came to tempt him. It didn't come to say, hey, let's go to the second estate. The tempter didn't say, hey, let's go to the fallen estate, but that's what he was there for, was to get Adam to fall. So we need to separate the environment that Adam was in the garden. Yes, it was a wonderful place, but it wasn't a perfect place because the serpent was there and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was there. So it was a potentially negative environment. But when you're in New Jerusalem, on the other hand, the negative is entirely removed. There's no tempter, there's nothing, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not there. It's just the tree of life. And so it's the exact opposite. It's a positive environment that's designed to cause us to ascend up into the second estate. So we could probably talk about the earth and talk about its estates. And we definitely can tell that the environment around Adam in the garden there was not a perfect environment. The part that God created, well, he created the serpent too, but he didn't create him as a serpent, he created him as Lucifer, and Lucifer had a fall of his own. He had left his first estate. And what he's really doing when he comes to the garden to Adam and Eve is hey, come on in, the water's good. You know, I fell and you can fall too. It's going to be good for you. You're going to love it. But it's good to separate out the identity and function that Adam was in while he was in the garden from the actual environment around him. He's his first estate.
Yeah. And I think what we're referring to as well is what some call is a reptilian seed line that has had an effect on a genealogy. And the other big question to ask is the man in Genesis 1 the same as the Adam in Genesis 2? There's a lot of controversy and dialogue around that. So that could be a first estate of a man, and then we could have a second race, if you like, which has a different catalogue of estates. And then we've got the big question of the wife of Cain and Abel. Where did that come from? And also, why in Genesis 5 is Seth declared as the son of Adam, and in Genesis 2 it's Cain and Abel? So there are all these questions. Some even say that in Genesis 5 it's a different race. And I think we definitely would all agree that we don't come from the Iceman, the Neanderthal DNA, and the archaeologists have seen a different bones for different versions of man. And it's almost like Adam came as an upgrade. He had a lot more intelligence, ability to act in a higher way than the caveman did. So I think we have to face the fact that there may be many races that we are unaware of, and some may be pure 100% pure blood and others may be hybrid, or fully reptilian seed line.
Yeah, I see all those questions as being very valid discovery questions. They're important questions, and in order to be able to ask those questions, you do have to do, just like you said at the beginning here, Jane, you trade out of your current theology and understanding of origins to allow for discussion about some of these discovery questions. But I also, for myself, I see them as two separate, it is part of one overall big picture, but I choose to divide the discovery questions about man before Adam in the garden out from the questions about what estates are we going to grow up into, because yes, I'm very interested to know about what all happened before we got here, but the most important questions for me are what is my destiny? What are my possibilities? What estates have I been in, and what estates can I go to? I know that these folks probably have estates too, and I find that fascinating, but I don't find it quite as personal as my journey, because I really want to get my destiny and function in it fully. So I am interested in the whole overall big picture questions that are there once we trade out of our initial understanding and realize that there's all kinds of questions that we can ask, and that they're all legitimate questions, and there are answers either in scripture or just straight from God himself. But the really, really important questions to me are, how do I get from fallen estate to first estate, and from first estate to second estate? And from here to here is becoming like Jesus, and from here to here is following Jesus. So, yeah.
I think I can answer that question. I've discerned that these other estates will help us in our journey of our destiny. And that's why they matter, that we engage with them. We see how different ways of operating. Like I've engaged with the Genesis 1 man and gleaned a lot about the form of the body. So I think it does play a part. Everything plays a part. And also the eternal realm, we're really calling our first estate. When we were spirit, we believe we're predestined spirit and soul, and without a body. And many of us have had encounters to encounter what that looks like. So that has another important part to play. And I see there are lumens there that actually help us with our journey now. So everything helps us. Well, I won't say this. There is another big question about who else may help us, but we've got to keep asking, because I don't think it's just the existing things that we see in heaven. There are so many things that we haven't yet seen that I think are going to be used by God to help us.
You sound like, was it Hamlet? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than you dream of in your theologies. Yes, once you start, there really is this trading out of, oh, I get it, I've been taught it, I get it, I understand it, I know how it all works. And then you trade out of it, and all of a sudden there are all these unknowns that you don't get it. But you do need to ask the questions in order to be able to get it, to understand it. And I have to trade out of saying what I did say, which is these other, before me being here on the earth and fallen estate, don't have any relevance to me. I see from what you said that they do, and we can encounter them. And part of the, let's put it this way, some of the pieces of the puzzle that we're trying to put together are held by those beings. And we need to have them give those pieces of the puzzle to us so that we can put the puzzle together.
I mean, some fathers are saying there's 19 races. I mean, we don't get to think we can have dominion over the whole universe without any idea about what part they played and why were they there before us, and what happened to them, and do we collaborate with them? Do they have extra intelligence that we don't have? I just think we're very naive if we're only interested in Adam's journey. It seems to me that those are the greatest power now, are those that are working with these other races that are able to, how shall I say, have telepathy, to understand information on a scale that is just not comprehended by people doing learning in the traditional book listen way. And that's where we've got to get to. We've got to get to this whole new telepathy way of operating. We may do a separate Facebook Live on telepathy and the one mind of heaven, because I see it's key. And that's what I'm seeing, is those with the power now they're just eons above in terms of intelligence, and they're using language that none of us have had any exposure to. And the temptation is to just say, well, it's all too hard, I'm not going to go that way. But we can pick this up. And this is the choice we've got. If we want to have full dominion, we have to mature. And mature means taking on higher concepts and not saying, oh, I don't like the language, or it's all a bit too hard.
Yeah, there's a couple different dangers there. One is just surrendering to overwhelm and therefore walking away from it. Another one is sticking your head in the sand like the ostrich and just saying, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And those are not, that's not the way to go. We're going to have to face these things and learn to get along together in the universe. And we've got
Yeah.
things to learn from other races, and we've got things to learn from us, and so on. So
Yeah, I just want to quickly address this language thing because I've had this come to me again recently. When you go from high school to university, the language changes dramatically. Now, most people embrace that because they embrace the fact they want to go higher than high school. But somehow in the spiritual realm, we kind of go, oh, I don't like it. I don't want it. I just want to stay with the same language. And we just have to think what mindsets we have there. That's sort of almost saying, I don't wish to grow up.
yeah.
And I personally never found the language a problem because I constantly just listened to it with a telepathic kind of sense of just understanding it, bypassing the mind. So to me, it never fazed me, but I can see if you try and relate it to every single word you know from scripture and go, well, it's also different, it becomes a problem. But it's done. The reality is, it was all there in scripture. We just didn't emphasize it a lot.
We see it.
Yeah.
There is definitely a change of language as you grow up. Think about this, just the change of your language from child to teenager to young adult to going to work in a particular trade or a particular field. And every trade or field has its own language associated with it that people that are outside that trade or field don't know. And you have to learn that language to be able to. Carpenters have to learn the language of carpentry to be able to talk to other carpenters about what they're doing. And same thing with astrophysicists or doctors or whatever. Every field has language associated with it. And part of growing up is coming into a new language. I'm not talking about French versus English. We're talking about new English words for those that are English speakers. And it's the same thing with heavenly realms. There's a whole language that goes with all the various levels as you go up, and you do need to learn the language to be able to talk to each other about it. And in some areas, you actually are creating the language as you go because you're doing new functions for the first time and you don't have words for it until you speak something out and you actually use new language to create language to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, we found ourselves having to decide what word are we going to call this. I mean, it's quite amazing. And the other thing that's been coming to me is about the rapture. I found myself wanting to desperately live out of a higher state. And this has been going on for quite a while now. And so the rapture's come back into my thinking. And what I sense is we don't have the full story either way on it.
Yeah.
But the question to ask, for you all to go away and ask, is that a form of new estate that some are being taken up into? And also the big question about parallel universes. You know, are there many living out of a timeline that's sort of similar circumstances, but it's just slightly different? These really blow your mind when you first start thinking about them, but eventually you start to get a hunger because you can't rationalize how these estates work without the concept of parallel universes. So
yes.
Just begin to hunger.
I'm sorry, the other thing is resurrection. That terminology that I used about incorruptible and immortal is the terminology used in 1 Corinthians 15. After being resurrected, I'm not talking about somebody that dies and is resurrected back up to life and die again later on. I'm talking about first and second resurrection, or especially the second, like Yeshua, where after being resurrected, you are immortal and incorruptible. That's where that language comes from. But also, the scripture talks about one of the two resurrections, I think it's the second one, where those that are alive at the time will be changed, and those who have already died will be resurrected. And both groups end up being incorruptible and immortal. So you can get there one of two different ways. I mean, you can die and then get resurrected, or actually it's three ways. You can die and be resurrected and get to immortal and incorruptible, or you can be living at the time of the second resurrection and become incorruptible and immortal, or you can do the journey from fallen estate to first estate to second estate and be incorruptible and immortal and never die. And that's the journey that we're working on. We've always got the net under the thinking of the tightrope walker, right? It's got the net under him. So we're doing the tightrope walk, seeking immortality and incorruption by doing the journey from fallen to first to second estate. And if you fall off the wire, well, the net that catches you, get resurrected later on, and you still end up being incorruptible and immortal.
And what I sense is that people from the first estate, when they come back, they'll have such an understanding of the big picture and spiritually can operate in a different estate. They're going to help us, and we're going to have such acceleration because of them. And I think that's the only way it's all going to change dramatically, is that acceleration. We're not going to do it by little minute steps that we move from the church age to the kingdom age, and takes us 10 years then to move to the ecclesia age. And things have to dramatically increase. Otherwise, we just become irrelevant. And the people who move with the current understanding, they get used by God. And I think that's the challenge. And why some are shocked and objecting to why the non-full sons new wineskin people are being used above the wineskin people. It's because we have so much baggage as believers that we just won't let go of.
Yeah, those people that get resurrected in the first resurrection and come back, think about it. Some of them are going to have thousands of years that they've been in training since they died, right? I mean, think of what you can do in 10 years, and they had 2,000, 3,000 years of training. Where are they going to be when they come back?
And all the things they see in heaven are going to be mind-blowing. I mean, they're going to be such tutors for us that are physical and not this kind of, am I really hearing right? So, shall we complete?
I think we've covered the basics. We've brought up some of the discovery questions that are involved with it. We've presented the journey from fallen estate to first estate to second estate. We've shown that Yeshua is the forerunner of that journey, and we're following him. So I think we've got the basics out there. We've told you flat out, we don't have all the answers. We do have some of the questions. We don't have the answers to all the questions. We have the answers to some questions. This whole thing is something that many people in Universal Ecclesia and several different forerunners and fathers are talking about. So this is the kind of thing you keep your ear open to hear what everybody else is saying too, because some of it will be the same as what we've seen, and some of it will be different. And we can put all that into our puzzle here. I have a suspicion that this full puzzle is not going to be put together just by a couple of individuals. It's going to be put together fully by the entire Universal Ecclesia, the entire Universal House, before we get all the details on this. And that means not just the ones that are living on the earth right now, the ones that have gone before us, and then we talked about the beings that are slightly different from us, also have pieces of the puzzle.
Yes, I think we may put more of this on our Patreon and more on our Accelerator program as well. So do sign up to that on the homepage. Just put your email in, and you get regular emails with recordings and pages that are some of the key material we really don't want you to miss. And then there's going to be that's 12 weeks. It's going to be another semester after that after a break. We also want to encourage you to consider if you're a trainee apostle or a merging father, or even wanting to do a transition from prophecy to oracle, or even fully hone your prophetic skills. We're going to be designing a course that is specifically for you, and we'd love to know your interest and connect with us in relationship. It will be a lot more relationship orientated, and there will be an offer of engaging in personal mentoring and personal sort of smaller group Zooms. But we really would like to start sowing seeds of you thinking about whether that's for you. Okay, shall I stop the recording?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We love you. We release these seeds to you, and we water these seeds that you may go forth and bring fruit from it.